Hello and welcome to this AE Basics tutorial where we're looking at actually outputting our projects, our compositions from After Effects. Now we're continuing to work in the render queue in After Effects, and we've looked at the render settings and we've looked at where we're outputting it to. But before we click this render button over here and it actually goes through the process of rendering, which will take a while, we actually need to think about what format we want it to export in. At the moment I'm on a Windows machine, it's defaulting to an AVI, and I don't really want to use an AVI. If you're on a Mac it'll be defaulting to a MOV, a QuickTime Movie. And you open up this little drop down here and you see you've got the settings. This incidentally is the same as this over here, it's just showing you where it's actually going to go. So clicking this yellow text here will give you the same options as clicking this yellow text here. And it's just telling me bits and pieces about the actual output that I've got. However, I might want to output in various formats, not just one format. But if you want to output for, say, iPad, iPhone, Android, Galaxy, tabs, say you wanted to output for Vimeo and for YouTube, the best place to do all of those outputs isn't actually here in After Effects. The best place again is to do all of that through the media encoder. What you're going to be able to output here is you can change the settings if you know what you're doing. But what you're really going to be doing is outputting whatever you've set up in your render settings size-wise as a whatever the file format is. Now you do have a whole bunch of options of presets in the drop down here for your output module. So you can output a lossless version, which is the default lossless version. What that means is I am not going to compress this file in any way, shape or form. It's going to lead to a very large file. But the file will be pure, it won't have any compression artifacts. It'll look great, but you can't obviously use that on the internet. It needs to be compressed to be able to be viewed on the internet. That will be outputting it for use in another project or another program. So you can output from here for different versions. So AIFF is actually an audio only file. You've got the ordinary 4x3 type outputs here, flash outputs. You've got a whole bunch of different ones. These are file formats, and of course you're on a Mac, you'll have all the QuickTime versions. But you also have at the bottom here, we've got Photoshop, TIFF, you've got image sequences. Now a file or a movie format like H.264 or Flash or one of these AVI files is a video and audio file that outputs as a single item. Now if After Effects were to crash while you were outputting a movie file, everything would be lost and you'd have to start again from scratch. But if you were outputting an image sequence, say a Photoshop image sequence or a TIFF or a Targa or one of the other image sequence formats that you've got, and After Effects were to crash, all you need to do is go back to the last good file and re-export from that point. And image sequences are used quite a lot in the industry. Although you don't have audio with an image sequence, what you would do is output the image sequence from After Effects and take it to some other type of video editing program such as Premiere Pro, where you could add the audio in and export your final version. So you've done a complex animation in After Effects, you output that complex animation as an image sequence so that you've compressed, if you like, all those complex effects and everything down to just individual images, which can then be very easily edited and with audio added in Premiere Pro. So image sequences are actually used a great deal. So I'm going to output two different versions. I'm going to output an image sequence and I'm going to output an H.264, a movie file. And at the moment H.264 is the file of choice for many people. Quite a lot of Apple products don't support Flash, so F4V and FLV are not supported by quite a lot of products, so at the moment that's an issue for people. Whether that will stay the same in time, we don't know. But H.264 is the darling of the day. It's the compression format that people want. And what I mean by that is it makes the file output very small, so it's great for sending over the internet, but it also keeps the quality very high. And previously MPEG-2 was a format of choice, but we've discovered that with H.264 you get a smaller file size and you have higher quality. So H.264 will be the one that I choose, but I'm actually going to choose those through this word lossless. And I'm going to click lossless, and again we open up a different dialog box, this time the output module settings. And by default it's gone straight to AVI, which is lossless, and we've got a whole bunch of different ones that we can choose down here. You'll notice that you've got additional ones than we had in the presets over here. For instance, I've got here an OpenEXR sequence, I've got a SIG sequence, I've got ones that I might not use. I didn't have QuickTime in my options. We've got Targa files. We've got different ones that were perhaps not there before, a PNG sequence. So you do have a wider range to select from. And also we've got the movie files at the top. So I'm going to output an image file and I'm going to output a movie file and show you how to do that. So let's do the image sequence to start off with. Let's start off with, say, a TIFF sequence, and I choose the word TIFF sequence, and we've got a little button here that says format options. That gives me a couple of options which perhaps I don't understand, so I'm just going to click OK. I'm happy with whatever I've got. But I've got to be careful because at the moment I'm not exporting the alpha channel, and if you remember, I've got this flag against a transparent background. So I actually want that transparent background available to me so that I can composite in my video editing software the actual flag with its transparent background. And that's found out through this particular one that says channels. So firstly, we are exporting the video, and also we want the channels. And if I click the RGB button here, you'll see that I've got options. I can export RGB or just the alpha channel, or in my case I want to export the RGB and the alpha channel, so I get the flag and I get the transparency. I click on that. Notice here when it says color depth, it changes to plus, and that little plus sign says I'm getting all the colors and I'm getting the alpha channel. And if you drop it down here, I'm just show you, you've got millions of colors, trillions of colors and floating point, and these are higher resolution versions, so it's probably 8 bits, 16-bit and 32-bit, and I'm happy with 8-bit at the moment, so I'm just going to go with millions of colors plus, leave it at that. Now I just want to go back up to this option up here, post render action. You can import it back into your actual compositor. Why would you do that? Or why would you import and replace the usage of something? It's simple as this. If I've applied this effect and I haven't got a particularly powerful machine, it slows down my machine while it plays through, and say it's important to my next workflow to be able to see what's going on here. An image sequence will play back instantly, I don't have a problem, but if I'm playing back lots of effects, I do have a problem. So what I might want to do is choose this import and replace usage to replace the actual item with all the effects on with a rendered version, which will be much easier then to do other things from or with. You can even set it as a proxy. So you can say this is a low quality version, we could do a low quality version and bring it in. Now I'm not going to do any of these because this is only a third size. You'd want to do this at full size, you wouldn't want to do it at third size. So I'm going to choose none, but do bear in mind that you can import so that you can then use it however you like, or import and replace so that you can get rid of all the slowness and actually your machine will speed up once the render has taken place. Okay, so color management I've dealt with elsewhere. The only other option you don't have in an image sequence is you cannot export audio. I don't have audio in this anyway, but an image sequence simply doesn't allow you to do audio. So I'm going to click OK, but I've got a potential problem. And this is the potential problem. I'm going to go back to the output 2. Just click on the yellow text here. Because at the moment I'm going to output an image sequence which will give me one image per frame. So I'm outputting 5 seconds, so 525, it's 125 images that are going to go on my desktop. Which means my desktop will be littered with images. And believe me, I have actually done this, and I know lots of people, sooner or later it happens, your desktop is littered and you spend ages deleting off or moving them into a separate folder. So if you're going to export an image sequence, make sure you create a new folder, call it image sequence, and select that folder so that these images will go into their own folder and not mess up your desktop. Now I'm ready and set up to export an image sequence. If I now want to export in addition to that a movie file so that I can have a quick look at how things are looking, I don't want to select the composition and duplicate it, because that means it will render one and then it will render another one. What I want to do is be smart. I want it to render each frame and save it as multiple versions, and that's where this little plus button comes in. If you click the plus button, you are able to add another output module, and you can have as many as you like. So for instance, I can go to Lossless and I can go to rather than AVI, I could say I want my H.264 version. Again, I don't have a huge amount of options here, not like I'd have in Media Encoder. If I click Format Options, it sort of says, well, okay, I'm going to do it high, and you know, the sort of standard settings that you're going to get for H.264. If you understand about target bitrate and maximum bitrate, you can play around with those, but you can also lock up your machine if you don't know what you're doing. Variable bitrate, by the way, is better than constant bitrate. It gives you a more accurate pass, a more accurate version. You can go to multiplexer. Well, it's MPEG-4. You know, what else are you going to do? So you haven't got a massive amount of options when it comes to this. So you tend to have to leave those as is. You can't output, say, to Vimeo and all those sorts of things. That's all going to happen, as I say, through the Media Encoder. The only other thing to say is make sure that you export audio if you've got audio. So make sure you tick that button there. You can choose the format, and then you can resize and crop and what have you. I'm just going to click OK, and I've now got two versions. What will happen is it will render each individual frame and save it as a TIFF file, and also save it into my H.264 compression. But the only other thing to say is I've added H.264 after this one, so therefore it will stick it in the same folder, my image sequence folder. So I just need to be a little bit careful as to making sure you know exactly where these things are going. I want it actually to go on my desktop, and I want it to be named both, say, the project name and, say, it's a comp name and dimensions. There you go. So I'm now actually ready to export. The next stage is simply to click the render button, and it will take a while to actually render it through. So I'm going to click that and then go to the end of it. You can see it's coming to the end here, and it usually makes a big plinging noise, big noise to tell you it's going. Just don't have your speakers up very loud when you do that. So I'm going to hit my tilde key to minimize that. We can see everything looks great. I'm going to minimize After Effects, and I can see if I go to my image sequence folder, there are the actual images. You can just see them flapping as you scroll up and down. And if I actually double click on the Comp1 little item here, you can actually get a final version of what it looks like. So that's export from After Effects using the render queue. In the next tutorial I'm going to show you how to export using the Media Encoder, which is an absolutely brilliant piece of kit in CS6, a massive improvement over previous versions and very easy to use. My name's Andrew Davis, and thank you for watching.